Hello, my name is Aaron Cavanagh and I'm the founder and editor-in-chief of Post-Burnout.com. Post-Burnout.com is a culture website dedicated to venerating burnt-out artists the world over. This is our website's podcast where we publish full-length recordings of our interviews, which are sometimes the unedited versions of our site's articles and at other times are exclusives. If you're a returning listener, thank you for coming back, and if this is your first time listening, thank you for checking us out. We hope you enjoy and consider subscribing, giving the episodes a thumbs up if you're on YouTube, or giving it a rating if you're anywhere else. It really helps us out. Thank you. Alright, in this edition of PostBurnout.com interviews, we talk with the Irish musician David O'Farrell McGeary of Haunted Images in the first half. David discusses switching his solo project from David ofmg to Haunted Images, the new direction of the project, his new single Grey Days, his upcoming debut album, and his aversion to writing lyrics. In the second half, Dean Nolan, who is the frontman of the Dublin 90s inspired alt-rock band Empathy, discusses their latest single A Dying Breed, why it took them 7 years after their formation to release music, mixing throwback with modernity, his history of playing some of Dublin's iconic venues, and much more. I also want to admit two mistakes on my part in these interviews. In the Haunted Images section, I talk of a Black Sabbath album cover that uses garish colours to disquieting effects. I say something like, I think it's Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. While I guess that is technically correct, the album cover that I was actually thinking of but couldn't remember the name of was Born Again. Then in the Empathy interview, I talk about a nightclub that took the place of Eamon Doran's in Temple Bar, and I say that I still see the signage when I pass by it. The club I was thinking of was Club M, which isn't actually where Eamon Doran's was, but it's actually around the corner from it. I must have misremembered its placement in my head. Mea culpa on both of those, but enjoy.
Oh, hello.
Hey David, how's it going? You alright?
Hey man, how are you?
I'm grand, man. It's nice to meet you. I was trying to think if we'd actually talked before, because I knew you used to play in Dog Day. And when I did that interview about 2 years ago with the guys in Stevens Green, you were the one absentee, I guess. So
Yeah, I think that was before I either joined or maybe I wasn't at that gig. But Aaron has told me about you before. I
hopefully
thought we
good
met
things.
at one of the gigs before. Yeah.
Well, it's nice to meet you for the first time, and yeah, I mean, I'll try to take up too much of your time. I guess the first thing I was going to ask just before we get into the, I guess the solo project. I mean, are you playing in other bands at the moment, or is this like your full time dedication?
Yeah, I've been kind of doing a session guitar thing for a while and producing. I'm actually going to a gig today, playing at a gig tonight. So that's
Okay,
why I'm like the weird time and then I'm in my car at the moment. So
yeah.
yeah, I'm playing like a acoustic thing in Little Whelan's, but I play guitar with Sweet June, and I do production for some local artists in Drogheda like Kitty and Stone Blind and a few other bands. And but but my main project has been this solo project, which is now called Haunted Images. It used to be called David OFMG, but
Right.
I've done a rebrand since now.
Yeah, it's interesting because when initially you kind of reached out about it, I was thinking that Haunted Images was kind of like a new solo project kind of thing, but it actually is a full rebrand of the David OFMG project. I was wondering kind of what was the impetus, I guess, for the kind of rebrand.
Um, the main catalyst was the music was changing. It became the music became more of what I wanted to do. It was more a little bit heavier, more band orientated as well, more live instruments. Um, so I wanted to reflect that because I have a bunch of new songs and an album that I want to release under this new name. So I wanted it to really be like a new leaf, like a fresh start. Also, unfortunately, no one could spell my last name, which was very
Everyone was saying David, oh my fucking God.
yeah, I even got Dave OMGF and all sorts, and I felt bad for anyone who's dyslexic as well. So I was like, I think it's
Yeah, for those who don't know, Dave OFMG is actually you have a double barrel surname, so it is just kind of the first initial of each name.
yeah, yeah. And I spent the last year trying to think of a cool reason for the name as well. I was like, oh, is it an anagram for something? Is it all my previous lovers or something? But I couldn't think of anything cool enough to justify it. So
But what's your consideration for leaving the David OFMG project as its own? as its own thing that kind of exists as just kind of like documentation if nothing else, or was it always just going to be like, no, I only want to be kind of known for one thing, and everything that I've done before can kind of be put under this umbrella?
Yeah, I think everything that I've done before can be put under haunted images because I feel like it's like a flexible brand, a flexible name. Like if I want to turn it into a band, I can. If I really want to, if I want to turn it into like a duo project, I can. Or if I want to keep it solo, um, it also removes the self from the songs, so it doesn't come across as this is my point of view. Like if someone comes across like one of the older songs and it has haunted images instead of Dave OFMG, they're not thinking, oh, this is from the mind of David. It's like they start to put their own little experiences on it, which is something I always love about music in general. Um, but I think the EP I released under David OFMG is quite different musically as well. So I think people will naturally consider that to be the OFMG era, and then
Yeah.
these new releases as the Haunted Images era.
Yeah, because like initially when you kind of like look at the even just before you listen to the music, I mean, just listen to looking at the iconography and the images that you're using, it gives more of a kind of, I guess, sinister sort of gothic approach, and it is kind of I think when you listen to the music, it's definitely. I don't know how sinister I'd call it. It's definitely darker, but you know, in comparison to what came before it. But I don't know. It seems like just like a very fast difference. But you're saying is that you kind of wanted to be flexible. So, for example, in this time, especially also with the connotation of the name itself, it kind of has that kind of gothic element to it. But
Mm.
you're saying like as it expands, it can kind of branch out into varying different things, which I think is a reflection of your own kind of listenership. You know.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And you can really hear it in the first EP where I was pulling from a lot of different strands of music that I enjoyed, but I never really focused until now. You get me? And you're dead on with the kind of the gothic and the darker imagery as well as music, and especially when I release a few more songs from the album, it'll become a lot more apparent as well. And I wanted to do the same with the imagery as well. I archived all of my social media posts as well, and I'm keeping everything very uniform now. You know,
Right.
everything quite similar to each other. So yeah, it's quite a big step up now.
I really love the image on the Grey Days single. It's very simplistic, but it's very like evocative. It reminded me. I don't know if this was an inspiration, but when I saw it, I was instantly thought of the Rosemary's Baby poster with that kind of like green.
Mm.
Was that an intentional reference, or is that just kind of my reading of it?
Definitely, yeah. No, that was definitely something I kept in mind. I spent most of August just trying to get like some sort of aesthetic or image down for this album because the album had been done for a few months, and I felt like August is always a quiet time, so I took the time to kind of watch a lot of movies. Rosemary's Baby was one of them. Another one was Nosferatu by Werner Herzog, and but the main one was The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
Right, the German Expressions film, yeah.
Yeah, and there's a print of it that is printed in green, so it's green and black. And
Yeah.
I took that exact color, and that's the color that I used for the Grey Days
Oh,
photo,
cool.
which is probably the same photo that Polanski referenced for Rosemary's Baby as well. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's a very good spot on there. Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting because I actually you mentioned Nosferatu, obviously the Werner Herzog one from the 70s, but I remember watching the original one from the 20s, I guess, and it
Mm.
had a similar kind of color grading too. It had a weird like tint. It was kind of off because I think it was just like, you know, a public domain version that just someone uploaded somewhere to like I don't know, either to somewhere like the Internet Archive or what's that other place, Daily Motion or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I watched that one as well, and there's one that was the tint was like all yellow. It was like
Yeah.
yellow and black, and I was like that. I was close to picking that one, but I thought the green felt more true to the I don't know, the color of the album, I guess, or the color of this new music rather than yellow.
Yeah, it's interesting kind of thing because I actually didn't even really think of that. But like when you look at those kind of old sort of I guess pre like Universal monster films, like those horror films from that era, like the Golem or things like that, like those series
Mm.
of films. They do always have these like weird tints, and it is kind of like it's very dreamlike and it's very I don't know, haunting. I was trying to I forget the name of the album, but I was also thinking of that Black Sabbath album,
Oh yeah,
is it Sabbath Bloody Sabbath or something like that? I forget the
I
exact
think
name
it
of
is.
it.
Yeah, I think it's that one. Yeah, yeah.
It reminds me of that too, where it just has this like I don't know, it's oddly haunting because like
Mm.
it's not for like lack of color, it's just kind of like off or something like that.
Mm.
It is very striking, you know?
Yeah, there's like lack of detail. I
Yeah,
think that's
exactly.
we're so used to HD everywhere that when you go back to like 16 millimeter, 8 millimeter film and things like that, the lack of detail is what's unsettling about it. I also referenced lots of like album art by Mayhem
Hmm.
and like a bit by Burzum as well, and their kind of take on kind of gothic imagery,
Yeah.
but less satanic.
Fair enough.
It's very fair.
No, because uh yeah, and also I think another thing that is very striking about those films is also just the how kind of how motion works because it's not
Mm.
smooth. It's not like, where every frame is accounted for because they used to be cranking it. It's a
Yeah.
weird way of putting it. But they used to be using a crank to film and it was just like you just miss frames here and there just in the natural motion. So everything, even like comedy films and stuff, you watch like all like films, it's just like everything just seemed a little off. It's a very interesting thing. So when it came to kind of like the name Haunted Images for these kind of things, what you were thinking of.
Yeah, kind of like, the image that's underneath what you actually see, and the context of everything. I find like music can create haunted images for you. So like if you listen to a piece of music and it brings you back somewhere, either to a place or a certain time, that becomes a haunted image because it kind of stays with you and it makes you it's not just like a visual recall, it's emotional recall. So it was kind of that. I was thinking of a name for ages and I couldn't think of anything for a while. And I studied film before doing music and I was doing a master's. Um, and I had this book by Libby Saxton, which was called Haunted Images, and it was about um, the ethical implications of beautiful imagery in Holocaust films.
Okay. That's a very heavy subject, yeah.
Yeah, light reading, light
Yeah.
reading. And I looked over and I thought, well, yeah, Haunted Images is a great name for that book, but then I thought, well, that's kind of like how I view certain music, like whenever I listen to Grey Days, it'll take me back to that certain place that I go back to every time I sing it, and that's like a haunted image for me. And also the way I write music with the use of ambience and lots of overdubbing and layers, there's like hidden sounds and hidden notes between every song where I kind of craft it in a way where every listen you might hear something new. You know what I mean? There's like
Yeah.
a little detail that you might have missed the first go around and you can hear it the second time, or things like that are hidden, that are lurking in the background. So
Yeah, no, totally. And also the other thing that's kind of interesting about what you're saying is that like you can't necessarily account for the images it's going to evoke for each individual listener too. So
mm,
I think that's actually one of the powers of instrumentation is that your mind when you kind of just listen to an instrumental, your mind does just kind of conjure up images, or at least for I think most people. I don't know, maybe there are some people just kind of see nothing, but I think you kind of start parsing a story in your mind
mm.
yourself when it comes to interpretation. It's the same actually, I think, with like film soundtracks, like as well. But like I don't know, like does that interest you too in terms of like trying to kind of glean what listeners will kind of get from your music too in terms of the images they'll conjure up,
Yeah, that always interests me. That's why I'm never really a fan of explaining what the songs mean.
right?
Like even though they do have meaning to me, but I feel like they could easily have meaning to a completely different meaning to someone else. Like I remember when I released Note to Myself, and it was like a week after, and a good friend of mine came up to me and he was like, "Oh yeah, I love this song. it's a if to me it's about this and this, and he listed all these things that they're about, and I was like, what are you talking? I did not see that coming at all, but that's brilliant.
Yeah,
It's like the artist almost relinquishes ownership of the art to the people. It's the same with like painting and film as well. Like the way I would see a film would be completely different to the way you or other people will see it, and they'll take different experiences from their own life and
yeah.
just project them on. So I find it very interesting.
It's also interesting how your own perception changes too, because like I think everyone's had that experience where you rewatch a film and you either like it or you
Mm-hmm.
dislike it when for the first time when previously your opinion changed. Of course, that also reflects maturity or reflects people's own kind of like life experiences. Things have new resonance as you kind of experience new things.
Mm.
I know for yourself, like if I'm correct, you don't really actually like writing lyrics. It's something that you um and I find it to be kind of a necessity if I read that correct. So how do you kind of feel about would you kind of prefer just for everything to be instrumental, or what do you kind of feel actually kind of having to put lyrics down to, which kind of divorces that kind of abstraction from the listener? How do you find how do you I guess how do you relate to that, I guess, or what's your kind of relationship with that?
For years I hated writing lyrics because I thought well, not I thought I was terrible at writing lyrics for years,
Okay.
and I was just like, and also I didn't start as a lyricist or a poet. I started as a guitarist, so that always resonated the deepest with me. Um, so the music always came first, usually, but I do think that's the moment where I have the lyrics that perfectly match what I'm going for with the music is the moment where I'm like, okay, this song is it. Because I'll write. I've had like a lot of demos for this album, but I could never get lyrics to some of them, and that was when I was like, okay, it's missing something. I'm guessing because I'm not. It's not making me write lyrics about what I want to write about. Um, and then in terms of lyrics themselves, I find it's the main thing is to be honest. Like that was the reason why I could never write lyrics earlier on and when I was doing music because I just could not be honest with myself or with what I wanted to say. And then when I first wrote Note to Myself, that was the first time I was ever truly honest with my lyrics. And then I was like, oh, I like this.
Yeah.
This is actually what I want to do. I get it now. I remember like I wrote one line. I remember the exact moment I wrote, I can see your silhouette in the window and I can hear you hurting yourself. And then I started laughing. So I was like, no way I'm going to put that in a song. That's ridiculous. Like, I'm not going to say that. And then I was like, oh, wait, that's it. That's why I should put it in the song.
Yeah.
Like, I had that emotional reaction. So, yeah, I still find it really hard to do. But once I get it, I'm like, okay, this is it. I feel so confident in this song now. Um, and with lyrics, I find, you have to have like a nice mix of being on the nose with certain things, but also being quite vague because you still want other people to take their own thing out of the lyrics. Like when you have like certain details and certain specific parts that relate to a very specific thing, that could still be quite relatable to someone because it shows that it's not vapid. It's not coming from a place without context. It's
Right.
coming from a place with context, but it's still vague enough that people can project their own feelings and things onto it as well.
Yeah, and from your kind of process there, it's something I was kind of interested there. What you were saying was like when it comes to the lyrics that kind of end up on the final piece. I mean, how much of that is just direct stream of consciousness, pen to paper, and how much of it is kind of carefully edited prose.
Mm. Yeah, that's I find most of the time it's stream of consciousness and then minor edits later on.
Right.
Like I love
Is that
one of
mainly
my
to fit the melody, or
mainly to make sense.
okay?
Like um like one of my favorite artists is Bon Iver, and the way he writes lyrics is he just mumbles.
Yeah.
He just plays the guitar and mumbles, and then he'll listen to the mumbling and be like, "That kind of sounds like this word," and then this word, and then ends up being very subconscious. So, but I wouldn't mumble. I just kind of sometimes I'll just play it over and over and then see what comes out straight away. And then when I listen to it over and over again, I could be like, okay, if I add this lyric, then that adds to more of what I want to say, or that makes a bit more sense than what I've just said, you know?
Yeah. Trying to
Uh,
make connective tissues. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. But there's like I think there's like two or three songs on the album that I want to release that I've sat down and been like, okay, I am writing. Like I approached it like a poem,
Yeah.
and then I tried to put it to the music, and it was semi-successful.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I'll find out when I release it, and everyone's like, "What was that?"
Was that something you struggled with when it came to actually performing music? Because then when you have these kind of like lyrics, are you afraid of the audience kind of critiquing them, or what's your relation then? Because one thing I noticed when I was listening to Grey Days in comparison to a lot of the other stuff, your other solo work was, obviously there's kind of a paradigm shift in terms of this overall kind of style. But one thing I noticed was the lyrics in this song, and again, this could just be how I heard it, but it seemed a little more lower in the mix. It didn't seem like at the forefront compared to some of your other songs. It seemed a little
Mm.
kind of buried in there a little bit. I was wondering, what's your relation with kind of like performing live in terms of the audience reacting to your lyrics in real time?
I don't really I don't really think about it too much because I find it becomes almost muscle memory since
Mhm.
I've listened to the music so much. But I do try and be as clear as possible in my diction when I sing. In terms of like the vocals, I wanted them lower in the mix just to kind of suit the nature of the song. But also I like the idea of like um where like where the vocals are a part of the music, and if you want to listen to lyrics, you could really like it makes you listen in a bit more.
Right.
Then you'll take a bit more note of the lyrics. With I guess with the earlier songs, I was kind of going for more of a pop mix. So the vocals are very upfront and you can kind of hear everything very clearly. But I really wanted the vocals to be almost like just one with the song, like an extra instrument. But in terms of playing live, I never really think too much about like, oh, if I say this, what would the audience think? Like, I'm more so like, um, each of these lines is just bringing me back to some other place. So it's a very selfish endeavor almost. I'm just like re-traumatizing myself by every line.
You're having acid flashbacks on stage.
Yeah, good Lord.
You were also mentioning production there, and my understanding is how you got into production. Again, correct me if I'm wrong or if I'm kind of mixing information here, but my understanding was what kind of got you on the path of learning how to produce was you were working with external producers and you were afraid of annoying them with constant revisions. Is that correct?
Sorry, annoying them with what?
Revisions, requests for revisions. You were like, I just want to
Oh,
do this myself rather than constantly being asked, or constantly asking them for this change and that change.
yeah, kind of, yeah. Because a lot of the people I was working with were busy with other projects, but also I mainly learned because I wanted like independent control over my sound.
Hmm.
So I like the DIY nature of certain artists, and I've always been like that as a person anyway. I was like, if I'm starting something, I'm like, I'll just learn everything about it
Yeah.
and then just go head first into it. And usually I'll be terrible at it for like a few months, and then when I really knuckle down and get into everything, I'll you know pull something half decent out of it. But in terms of production, I've always used production as a writing tool. So very rarely I'd just be sitting with an acoustic guitar or whatever, strumming away and then writing a song that way. Like sometimes I do that, but mainly I'll have like the laptop set up or my computer set up, and all my software and stuff, and I'll be writing that way.
Yeah.
And I'll have this a very specific, especially for this album, I had a very specific sound and vision that I wanted to do, and I was like, I may as well just learn how to do this myself. So even like down the line, if I like, okay, time for album two, I can just do it myself,
Hmm.
you know, and it's also cheaper as well. But I have to pay rent, man, you know.
Not fair, fair.
But also, I love, especially recently, I've been producing for a lot of other artists, and I've really loved doing that. Like I found, it was very because I was really in my head, of course, writing this album and producing it and mixing it. That producing with other artists was a great creative break because I could still be creative, but I'm helping someone else with their song and helping them achieve what they want from it. So yeah, it's been a very very long self taught journey that's finally I'm getting decent at.
Do you find that working with other producers kind of influence what you do with your own style, or I don't know, like even sometimes like when you're no, I find when you're working on other people's projects, again, you were talking about film, that's like an example of like you can look at how other people are kind of doing what you would do and kind of go, this is how I do it different. This is, this is how
Mm.
I would do it. Do you get that kind of I don't know, that kind of experience where you can kind of bring stuff that you learn on the job to what you're doing, or what's your relation with that, I guess?
Yeah, totally. I mean, a big thing would be just surround yourself with people way more talented than you and then steal everything from them, pretty much. Well, we steal from each other, you know, like there's a
Totally.
group of us, pretty much all my friends really that we produce music for, well, not for each other, but like I work with a band called Modern Love and they produce a lot of their own stuff. And I'll show them things and they'll show me things. And you know, it's a beautiful collaborative effort. But through that and through experimentation, you'll find out like, oh, I really love doing stuff like this. Um, I don't really care about doing stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like you'll
Hmm.
become very selective over time. Like at first, when I was first doing production and writing, I was writing everything under the sun. I was writing metal music and funk music and lots of pop music and stuff. And I enjoyed it and it was very fun and I love all those songs. But now I'm at the point where I'm like, cool, I can do that, but I don't want to. I want
Right.
to do this stuff, you know. I want to do the ambient stuff with the alternative rock infused and all this, you know. So yeah, it's like being like a music producer sponge around these amazing creative people and then cherry picking your favorite parts, the parts that you really love, and then getting really really good at them. That was kind of our approach to it really as well.
Yeah, I think that's kind of important too, to kind of experiment and see what you're capable of, and then once you know your capabilities, then being discerning in terms of selecting what parts are actually going to facilitate the music. Because I think that's an important part. Is I remember years ago watching an interview with Kim Deal, the Pixies, and she was talking about the Pixies bass lines being really simple, and she was like, yeah, like some other basses just have, obviously they have the capabilities of doing what I'm doing. It's very simple, but they just refuse to. It's just like, no, it has to be more. No, there has to be more fills. There has to be, there just has to be more. It has to be more complex. It has to be more ostentatious or whatever. And she was like, no, it has to like facilitate the song. And that's something that I've always just
Exactly.
thought about. It's like not only just again with music, but just everything. It's just like, well, yeah, you can be a bit more verbose, you can be a bit more ostentatious, but you have to kind of serve the art that you're doing, you know?
Totally. That's like the number one rule, man. Like definitely. And you really do fall in the trap of doing too much, especially with production as well, with producing music. You're like, you know, I'm gonna put a fucking synth in here and I'm gonna put
Yeah,
an orchestra here and this and that, and then you realize like, oh, now it sounds terrible. This great song that I had now sounds terrible. Like, yeah, that's
right.
100% it. Like,
And
yeah,
sometimes you bury it so much that it's like, well, shit, a lot of the changes I made are kind of irreversible.
this is a mess now. Yeah, I don't know what's
C-
going on.
Control Z is the best friend of any
Yeah,
of this.
very true. Very true.
I'll try not to take up too much time. One thing I wanted to ask was about just sticking with the kind of the images that you're associating with this new era of the project. Um, are you working with other artists, or are these kind of your own creations, like the cross images, and as well as the it's the album art and the single art?
Yeah, all the album art and single art and all the kind of Instagram posts picture wise is all done by me. Um The crosses and stuff for the Grey Days video, I shot that myself on like a film camera in Monster Voice. The logo was done by a great artist, Chloe Hart from Arklow. She's done all my previous um EP and single artwork before the album. And then she's just been swamped with loads of commissions and stuff. But she made like a really great logo, the three swords.
Yeah.
I just love that logo, and I've been slapping it on everything. You know, it's just it's a perfect sum up of everything. And then in terms of videos, I work with a great director called Marisha. She goes under Zinska on Instagram. And she's a great editor, and she did the Grey Days music video and the If You Want music video as well. But in terms of like all the single art and the album art was done by myself. I again spent the majority of August trying to not suck at it, and then eventually I got something that I liked.
What is image editing is kind of visual design? Is that something that you're kind of self-taught in, or is that something that you actually have a bit of a background in? Because I think it looks really great.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I have like a little bit of background from college, but I'd mainly more have a background for video editing and stuff.
Right.
But with the image editing now, I use the free I use general image manipulator, like free programs. You know, took my own photos and like used royalty free stuff and all. Just kept it as bare bones, as simple as possible. I find like, especially a lot of young artists end up doing way too much, and I've been guilty of as well, just putting way too much into art, and people think detail is the best part about art, but it's really simplicity, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah,
uh
no, well, like the shit I do on the site, because a lot of it is based on stuff I would have learned in college. I use all free shit because, again, like you said, you gotta pay rent. So, like for audio editing, I use Audacity. For video, I use DaVinci, and for image editing, I use Pinta. I used to use Paint.net, but it's not on Mac, so I'm like, ah, shit. But that was a
Man,
great,
Da
and like
Vinci's the best. Da Vinci's so
DaVinci
good.
rocks. Yeah, they
Oh,
only want like 200. The only issue, okay, I don't want to go too much of a tangent here, but I was trying to export something yesterday, and it kept getting to like the last quarter. And I was like, out of this space. I cleared so much, and it just would not stop doing it. I was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. So I just had to go
oh.
back, just re-edit everything, and just like try
Mm.
to make it simple. That was pissing me off. But yeah, ordinarily it's good, except for that
Yeah,
one time.
better than it's a lot easier to deal with the Premiere anyway, and Adobe,
Yeah.
the whole suite. Jesus, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's good to know both because like so many
Mm.
if you want to do a professional thing, everyone uses like Adobe software.
Yeah.
I find Photoshop to be like really difficult compared to like the stuff I use. It's a pain in the ass, but like you kind of got to do it. It's like unfortunately it's like well these are the industry standards and it's funny because like I remember when I was in college like probably about 10 years ago, I did PLC, and back then everyone was like, what was that? Oh, I can't even, fuck, I can see the logo in my head. I can't think of it. What was that other video editing software that was like the industry standard at the time?
Oh, was it Vegas? Sony Vegas?
No,
No.
what
Oh,
was it? Avid,
Avid.
Avid, Avid.
Yeah.
I remember they were always like, you gotta use Avid, you gotta use Avid. And then
Oh,
over that time, Premiere Pro just became the industry standard. I'm like, yes, because it's much more
thank
intuitive.
God.
And then you can take it's transferable. You can take that skill onto DaVinci.
Mm.
Um, Going back to your music, so Grey Days was released last week. Why did you kind of decide on this song for, I guess, the first introduction to this, to the Haunted Images kind of rebrand?
It's been it's a very old song. It's been a song that I've played live a lot for the last year, and it's a song that everyone has been annoying me to release since, you know.
Fair. All
Like,
right.
yeah, like even my parents are like, when are you releasing that fucking song?
I
um,
love that rather than when you get a job, when you releasing the song.
yeah, exactly. Um, but like I wanted it to be perfect, you know, before
Yeah,
I released it, and because it was a very hard song to get right. Writing it was grand, actually. Writing it was the easiest part. It was recording and mixing it that was a nightmare. It wouldn't get there, you know, it wouldn't get to the point where it was ready. But finally, I'm so glad it is now. I think I found I've realized sometime last week that it had been 2 years since I wrote it first. So it's been quite a long journey, but I'm glad that I was able. It's been kind of like a cult favorite of live shows. Like everyone wants to see it live, and performing it live is very fun, and everyone really enjoys it live as well. So I'm just glad it's finally out there, and it's also, I think it's a great introduction to the new era, because it's it has the darker elements of it. You know, the lyrics are a lot darker, and the music itself is quite melancholic, but it is still quite. There's lots of poppy elements in it too, so it is still quite grabby. There is still like big moments in it, and I feel like that and if you want the single I released in May were kind of like the real starting points where it's like, okay, this is the new direction. This is what you're gonna expect more of this kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Perfect. Yeah, I know you have to go soon, so I'll just ask one final question that is about the record itself. So,
Mm.
what's kind of the general idea for, I guess, like a release window, let's say, and if there's any information you can and want to devolve, I don't know how close to your chest you're keeping this album, but yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna be like fully transparent. I don't even care anymore. Like I'm telling everybody,
It's
like,
out tomorrow.
yeah, I wish, man. I'm very excited to release it. And yeah, the next single is called Sometimes, and it's gonna come out the 8th of November.
Okay.
I remember the 8th of November. So that's gonna be the next single. That's a song I'm really excited to get out. It's bit more, bit less poppy, bit different, but I'm really looking forward to getting that out. It's one of my favorite songs. And then gonna have another single um in February. And then I'm hoping for the album either to be February, March, April, around that block. Fingers crossed for February, but you never know what happens. But yeah, so it's gonna I've been working away at it. All the songs are, labors of love. I've been mixing it and producing it for pretty much the last year. So I'm really just excited to get it out there and get a few shows with it as well. I'm going to be playing a show in Drogheda in November as well, the 16th of November, supporting friends of mine, Idle Discourse, and then
Oh, cool.
hopefully do a few more shows in February as well. So, but yeah,
Perfect.
8th of November is the next single. Sometimes.
Perfect. It actually would be sick if you get some shows around Halloween time. I think it'd be perfect for that kind of like season. You know what I mean?
Fancy
Would you
dress.
actually, actually, would you ever consider? I don't know, like when it comes to live performances, incorporation of I guess projection of old horror films or something like that. I think that'd be like really effective to kind of go along with the music.
Totally. Yeah, I wanted to write like a little story and film a little like a homage or tribute to like German expressionism or older horror or like gothic new wave horror and stuff like. But I'm gonna be working with Marisha on that, trying to get some visuals for some live shows and getting some, not costumes, but like a real stage aesthetic as well. You
Yeah.
know, like a color scheme and certain looks on amps and clothes and things like that. Like I think that as much as people hate to admit it, that does add quite a good bit to live performance as well, like the
Yeah.
uniformity of it and the spectacle of it as well. But yeah, definitely like projector and kind of lots of keep the imagery throughout this whole era, this whole stage for sure.
Yeah, I know that that can sometimes be an issue for kind of acts who, because I think when you get to like say like a theater level or especially an arena level, there's consistency between the kind of venues you play, so it's easier to kind of have a uniform kind of stage show. But when you're playing like at a club level, each venue are so different that it's hard to kind of
Mhm.
get the specs and the kind of the requirements needed. So I know like for example like even something like stage props like. Um, can be very difficult, even like the incorporation of like making sure everything gets on the stage and everything sits well because the dimensions are always so off. It's such a pain in the ass. But I wish there was like I wish like when it comes to like the club level that you could kind of there was more consistency between each club. But at the same time, the one thing I do like about clubs is that they have kind of their own individual kind of
Yeah,
personality. I think
Don't
once you
know
get to like the
anything
arena
about it.
level, especially, everything just seems so sterile and similar.
Mm, definitely true. It has its own little character, yeah, that you want kind of want to take advantage of too. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Is
totally.
that
Yeah.
something like when it comes to, being considerate for these things that um would you like say for example you knew you had an upcoming tour, would you kind of like look ahead at like video or images of the venue you're playing and try to see what you could work with there, or um am I just putting ideas in your head and attributing to you?
Yeah, it depends on the place. Like, you know, if it was a domestic tour like in Ireland, I definitely would have like my research and be like my preferred venues or what I would do to work around it. But then anywhere else, I'm like, just put me anywhere. Put me on the street, like put me on the bus. I'm
I
happy
don't
to
take up
play.
much space.
You know, it's like I'll bring the whole band on the tube. You know, like make a thing out of it.
Thanks very much, David, and best luck with the showtime, and best luck with the single, the album, everything coming up. And
Thanks, man.
yeah, is there a place people can find you, one consistent place, or
I think Instagram's the best place. That's where I post everything and all the updates. So it's haunted images underscore at the end.
perfect?
And yeah, keeping an eye on the Spotify as well. Um, just kind of little hints and things like that, you know. But yeah, Instagram would be the main one, 100%.
Perfect. Enjoy the rest of your day, man, and it's really nice talking to
Yeah, it's great talking to you. Finally, man. Have a
you.
have a good day. Hopefully, talk to you soon.
Yeah, see you, man.
Yeah, see you. All the best. Cheers.
Best luck, man. Bye.
Ah, I gotcha.
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
I can hear you there, yeah.
That's perfect, man. Hey, man, it's very nice to meet you. I'll try not to take up too much of your time.
No, no, no,
Um,
that's all right. Yeah. Sorry about the awkward time and stuff like that, you know.
Man, whatever works, you know.
Yeah,
You,
yeah.
you get used to it. It's totally fine.
I'm sure I
Um,
just have to babble. You've got to write it all up after it. So
hey, yeah, we have a lot to get through because it's out on Friday, so we'll get through it. Yeah, I mean, the first thing I was going to ask quite simply is a bit about your own kind of background, because like Empathy by no means is your first band. I believe you've been playing music since you were pretty young, if I'm correct. I was wondering what was kind of like your history of music. What was kind of like your first instrument and things like that, and what were kind of uh the early music that kind of inspired you.
the early music that inspired me is like nearly nothing like the music we play. But like my dad was a guitarist himself, like is a guitarist. You don't like me saying that, but he is.
Once you
Yeah,
start, you never stop.
yeah. I know. He was a guitarist all his life, and basically the minute like I was born, he was trying to shove a guitar into my hand. And I loved music. I loved like my memories of like sort of popping along in the truck. Like he's from the motor business, and popping along in the truck listening to all like Tom Petty and like Budgie, and he was a huge Alex Harvey fan and stuff.
Okay.
Just I just got a huge like a great dose of like different backgrounds of rock and pop at the time and stuff, and I just loved music as it was, but I never wanted to play guitar. He kept trying to push it on me and push it on me until my mom came to him and he was like, you just stop. If he doesn't want to play guitar, he doesn't have to. And he's like, okay,
Yeah.
okay. The minute he stopped pushing was the minute I picked up the guitar and started going to him, being like, "Can you, am I holding this G chord right and stuff?" And so it was like one of those like push him away until you need to pull him back sort of
Right.
thing. So I was fairly young getting into that. I was about like 10 or 11, and then the minute I went into secondary school, one of my best friends was a drummer, and he was sort of like, "Oh, you play guitar and stuff, and you sing and everything." So I got dragged into like a sort of little garage band. They were called The Punished at the time and
Punished.
stuff. And yeah, yeah. Punished with no E. We had a little comment
Ooh.
instead.
Oh, that
At
is
the,
actually is kind of spicy. That is that
so that's
is
that's sort of
mixing it up.
wrapped me into the whole music thing, and then just eventually, like even the three lads like in empathy and stuff, it's all through like connections through like childhood friendships and stuff, as you go along through school and everything, you start to look around and be like, oh, you play an instrument, you play the exact instrument I need in my band and stuff. So it was
Conscripting them.
yeah, I know. But that's really like as simple as sort of as I started playing music with more people and started I'm a big advocate of like if you want to get good at your instrument, you just need to play with other people,
Right.
get used to bouncing off each other and play with people that are better than you. So, and that eventually, goes hand in hand with you end up listening to loads of different types of music. And that sort of develops down this path where, like my favorite band is Smashing Pumpkins. And like, I'm sure you can hear that in some of
Yeah.
the influence of guitars and stuff like that and everything. So I hate to say like, I model myself on like, trying to sound like that, but like, I'm sure it's just like,
Yeah.
unconsciously like leading yourself down that pathway, you're doing it.
Yeah.
So
No, actually, and just to kind of talk about this the style of music. So there's a lot to kind of go on there based on what you were saying. So I guess one of the first things I wanted to ask was, did your dad was he like a musician? Did he play in bands, or was it just kind of stuff he did at home? Would it have been electric guitar? Or would it just been like acoustic? What was that kind of background, I guess?
acoustic guitar. So he like big Neil Young guy and was constantly writing songs. So like all while growing up, my dad would have a new song written and stuff, and much to the chagrin of my mom about like his million different girlfriends prior. So, and, and stuff. There was a couple in there for her as well, and stuff. But like, he was constantly, writing about the world around him and stuff, and that's sort of inspiring in its own way. But yeah, he mainly like acoustic guitar songwriting was like the main, like using it as a vehicle, for expression rather than being a fantastic guitar virtuoso.
Yeah,
He nearly actually probably disliked electric guitar a little bit, and he'd admit this as himself. It's simply because he just can't play it as well as acoustic. Because
that's fair.
he just loves digging in and stuff, and like dragging the emotion out of an instrument naturally and stuff. And if you struggle to do that with an electric, like you're not going to like it as much. But that's sort of like what spurred me off, even in like the songwriting area. So I got a little bit of inspiration of like, look, guitar is cool, music is cool, and stuff like that. But then there's the opposite side of it of like it's inspiring to like be around somebody who like writes music, throughout my entire childhood growing up. So
The other thing I wanted to talk about that you mentioned there that was kind of interesting asking about is you were kind of saying like when you're in bands with people who are kind of better musicians than you, that kind of makes you want to get better. But I've actually been in that scenario sometimes, and kind of maybe just insecurity on my part, but sometimes I feel like the weakest link in that case where I'm like, oh my God, the drummer's really great, the guitar is really great, and I'm just like kind of intermediary at best. I was wondering, is there any kind of like sense of intimidation when it's kind of like when you are trying to learn from people who are better than you, or yeah, what's kind of your relationship with that, I guess?
Oh, well, I would describe them as dicks, to be
Okay.
honest. The people who basically like go off soloing and shoving their superiority in your face,
To be
that's
clear, my base didn't do this. It's just my own
okay,
insert
right.
thing. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the way the way
I
I
don't want to shit
always,
talk anyone.
and this is going out to Paul, all right? No, it's I don't know. I suppose there is a little bit of that like hurdle in your own head. You need to get over nearly yourself a little bit and realize, one of the, strongest positions you can put yourself is in the here and now and realizing where you are, how you got there and stuff, and how you can get to the next step. And the things that can hold you back, in my experience, by playing with like people who are better than you. If you have that, like, you're in you're trying to get better. You are impressed by people who are better than you. Like it's nearly up to them to see it as an opportunity to pass on like a little bit of knowledge, or like, if they see you're sort of going like, showing a bit of interest, not to just keep shoving it in your face. And like I was always told, like, if you want to teach somebody, you really have to show them, don't just play at them,
Mhm.
and play with them, and take it slow, slowly, note by note and everything. And then like, it's really up to yourself. It's up to yourself in your own head then whether you allow yourself to get over that hurdle, if you have people who are like, kind about it and stuff. But I've been in bands as well where you have that person who's like, it there is an intimidation factor. You
Right.
are right, like,
Yeah.
most definitely. They're just like flying along and you're there going like, Jesus, man, like, so the inferiority complex is
Yeah.
like just going, what?
And the other interesting thing is sometimes like you can be on the kind of similar skill level as another musician, but when they kind of show you a song that they want you to play, sometimes it's just difficult to translate. It's very hard to explain. But even I've had that issue sometimes with people who are better musicians than I am, where I'm showing them something that I write. And to me, it's a pretty simple riff or whatever, but they're kind of struggling to get it. I'm like, it blows my mind. I'm like, why is this a difficult
Yeah.
thing? Like, I was able to do this in my bedroom last night. Like,
I've had guitarists who are like technically just so much better than myself and can
Mhm.
do stuff that I could only dream of doing on a guitar. And then it comes down to yeah, rhythmic stuff, like, and they struggle with it. I don't
Yeah,
know if that's just the fundamentals, they just took off from a different base than yourself, like,
yeah,
because as I said, growing up around like songwriters, like, you're sort of, it's all based around like the instrument being a vehicle for the song rather than for your own, like, I suppose,
dexterity.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I think there definitely is something to that. I've met guitarists where, like, exactly what you just said there, you're showing something that's fairly simple and they're like struggling, or next thing they seem like the robotic ones. And
Yeah.
you're going, oh, um, you're human.
And then there's also the other issue where it's like sometimes they refuse to play something simple where they always seem to have to kind of complicate like what should be a pretty simple riff or a
Oh, yeah,
lick.
yeah.
It's very strange.
Over explainers, like,
Yeah, it's like it can't just be what it is. Like, no, you have to add more to it. You have to make it more complex, or you don't feel like you're really playing or something like that. I
yeah,
think
yeah,
that's an interesting. Like people sometimes, I do think just need to kind of subside their ego and just kind of let the song be what it needs to be.
yeah. We do that a lot in practice. We end up like, we leave a term like I always keep using, in a lot of different contexts, is leaving stuff on the cutting room floor. And that's
Right.
like in terms of finishing out an entire project and deciding to abandon it. And then also all the different cuttings, even that you leave on the cutting room floor, to the songs and stuff that you do finish.
Yeah.
And it's like lots of our songs, by the time we're finished, nearly are like, sort of touching 8 and 9 minutes. We're going, what are we doing here? Like, you have to,
Yeah.
like, and we're not as impressive as like Tool with the transitions and stuff and everything. So like we've got to constantly, like, trim the fat and stuff on a constant basis. And you do have to take that moment, sort of take a step back and, like, understand, like, are we, like, doing a little bit of I don't know, are we being too, like, backslappy with ourselves a little bit,
Yeah.
so no,
Yeah.
no,
That's
yeah,
Yeah, that's kind of the important thing because I think some people can get very self-indulgent and just let things, I don't know, just go past like what it actually needs. I think actually, I don't know if you're familiar with them, but like I think with like Black Flag's midpoint career, that was like the big issue with them was that like again they just never knew when to end the song.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
at the
yeah,
same time, I don't think people should be restricted. I think there's plenty of like 10-minute, 20-minute songs that really grip you and can kind of really take you along in that journey. I think actually Tool are a good example of a band who do that well and also do it poorly.
yeah, yeah,
Where
yeah.
sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, and I don't really know why.
Yeah, yeah. No, no, that's why it even like I bring them up is you've got an album full of like, 10 and 11 minuters, like,
Yeah,
and you're sort of going like, but it works and it doesn't feel like 10, 11 minutes.
yeah,
That is really the tell is like, if you're at the end going like, just that felt like 10 minutes, well, then you probably need to trim it, like.
yeah,
Usually people are talking about trimming 6 minutes and legitimately talking about trimming 10 minutes back to five. We do that on a constant basis. Like,
yeah.
uh,
Well, you kind of like but like if you had a song that was like say 15 minutes and it was like but it felt right and it felt like it was necessary, like would you kind of leave it as is? Like how do you kind of make that decision then to kind of go, this is actually fine, we don't really need to edit it? And do you ever worry about over editing? Do you ever worry about taking too much stuff out? Or do you kind of go like, well, no, we can just go back and just add the things on if it ever got to that point? Like is there any 'cause I remember actually, again, just going to a personal thing, writing a song that a guitarist felt was too long, that was too repetitive. But I was kind of focusing on the storytelling as you were kind of mentioning of the song. I was like, but if I cut this, it doesn't make sense if I cut that. And he was like,
yeah,
no one's gonna care. He's
yeah,
like, no one's
yeah,
actually following along to the story you're telling. I'm like, oh, okay, I had to like eat humble pie a little bit there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, there definitely is a little touch of that. I don't know we're constantly in self-monitor mode, like, and you're never really sure. There's always something else that can be done or
Yeah,
can't be done, and you're just forcing the issue, and you're always afraid of like which way you're tipping over into, like, because really you could keep adding to a song for as long as you want, adding little odd. I think we need to add like one more little note in there, or maybe we just extend that bit by like another bar. It's just like sometimes you literally just need to leave it as it is and like
yeah,
do it by feel. Like we do have like we're constantly writing, and while we're releasing like these singles and stuff like that, we're constantly writing for further releases and stuff. And the way we would even go into the writing process when it comes to every song is we write for the stage first. So every song has to be translatable on stage, and then if you have an idea that like it's nearly like two different songs, because you're just trying to write a song the most natural way possible, and then you're nearly taking note as you go along. You're like, in the studio we could do something like this, do a little bit of studio magic and stuff, but there has to be there has to be a strong basis. You have to be able to perform a song live and do it justice. And actually, a good example is just this Sunday. I was at Dandy Warhol's,
okay.
and
I missed that unfortunately. I would have loved to have seen it, but
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. No, it was good, but they there was something up with getting their equipment over, and they had to rent a load of equipment. So they didn't
Oh.
have their organs, didn't have their synth or anything like that. And when it came to, they had to abandon a load of songs, and they were actually they're fucking up. Like
Hmm.
they restarted, I think, four songs, and including like the big hit like could be Bohemian Like You, as they're
Yeah.
leading up the drum bit, they came in wrong, and
Yeah.
like Courtney just stopped and he's gone fuck. And I know I feel like it's frustrating stuff, but it had me thinking there, and they're going like, oh, is that just a case of like there are some vital things there that you're sort of leaning on too much? Then
Mm.
when it got back to the old like straight two guitars, a bass, and drums here, and you sort of forgot how to play your own song a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
it's very interesting because like sometimes you do listen to live renditions of songs that have frills on them and it just sounds weird. Like it just doesn't sound correct. I'm trying to think of examples, but like I've definitely heard songs that have a lot of production flares that when you hear it performed live, they have to rearrange it a lot, and it just doesn't feel like the same song. It can feel very off. So I wonder if you do get accustomed to, um, like playing live sets that have all those kind of additional things. Then when you no longer have those abilities to actually kind of construct the song around them, or to hit your marks based on a lot of those
Yeah,
elements,
yeah.
it can really screw you up. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I'm always very, very conscious of that when we're writing, of like having this balance to where, like, look, I'm a bit of a traditionalist when it comes to, like, performing and stuff. I'm like, I nearly want to be able to, like, just get a guitar and an amp and be able to play the song and have it be recognizable in some way. If there's if you can't sit down with your acoustic guitar and like make it discernible enough that, like, you can go, oh, it's that song,
yeah,
then there's a bit of an issue there. You're going into nearly like there's too much studio going on. There's too
mm,
much editing you're relying on and stuff, and it's nearly like, well, why not just play to a backing track at that stage
right.
if you're getting to that, you know?
Yeah, no, totally. And what's interesting is because I was looking at some of the people that you cite as influences for this band, and Alice in Chains, Smashing Pumpkins, and Queens of Stone Age were the names. And I think when you listen to either of them, like, 'cause I think each of those bands really do feel, especially I think Queens of Stone Age feel like very production heavy. But when you see them do the acoustic sets, it's crazy how it translates really well. Like I remember watching Queens of Stone Age doing acoustics in Australia, I think, and
Mm.
they were doing No One Knows, and it's just like I don't know, it's just like how they're able to translate that and kind of make it into a more kind of slower acoustic desert rock kind of style.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's just like, and obviously, Alice in Chains, the MTV Unplugged is one of the, I
That's
think,
one of the
best in that
best.
series.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, how they're able to just like kind of translate that in a very simplistic way. I think it is kind of like, I do agree with you. I think it's kind of important if you don't have the ability to kind of have all those extra flares to kind of be able to take it back, and it doesn't have to be a one for one translation, but just to be able to translate to some degree to acoustic, I think is very important.
Oh, I definitely wholeheartedly agree with it. Now, at the same time, I'm going to contradict myself a little bit because one of my other like favorite bands is Interpol,
Okay.
and the way they mesh their guitars, there's actually like no way nearly of playing a lot of their songs just as one guitar
Yeah.
and sort of have it be satisfying.
Right.
So while you might be able to like pick out, like, say, playing Obstacle One or something, you can play the main riff. But if you're not getting that beba beba in the background, you're going like, I feel dirty playing this. Like,
Yeah,
um
that's what I'm saying. Like sometimes when you don't have those things, it makes the song sound off and weird. It's strange.
yeah, yeah. But that's a special circumstance. It's like because they don't play two backing tracks. You're not relying on, like, um synths, because you need a specific or a specific sampled, sound to play or something. It's literally just they have very intricate, like, intertwined guitar playing. It's impressive, like, but can't play it on acoustic. My dad would be very disappointed. Like,
So, that's the important thing. Make sure for your dad's sake that every song you make can be done.
exactly.
If like you just come home one day, he's just like angry. He's like, "What did I find?" It's like a Spotify song that you can't like translate. He's like, "It's our new track." It's like getting busted with like a packet of cigarettes or something.
Man, do you want to know something really, really funny? Great side story, actually.
Go ahead.
For when I was young, about like when I was about 14 or something like that, we were playing a battle of the bands in Eamon Dorans, and we were playing last song. We were playing a cover of Nirvana, "Breathe."
Hmm.
So we all took our tops off on stage and started playing it. So, and somebody was filming it, and next thing, I'm in bed, and I used to go to bed and put my earphones in my ears, and one night I just like opened my eyes, my fucking dad standing over me with the angriest face ever, and I was like, "Oh, this is interesting." And I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Come here, come here." I said, "What?" And he goes, "It brings me corner and shows me his laptop. He goes, "What the fuck is that?" And I'm like, I said, it's me and Eamon Dorn playing Breed. And he goes, "Fucking naked." And I went, "What?" He goes, "Well, you're fucking playing like what? You're fucking in your jocks there." So I said, "Dad," and I tilt his screen down, and then he could see my jeans and stuff. And I said, "I'm wearing jeans," and he just goes, "Ah, so you are. All right, good night." I'm like, "What the
He
fuck?"
thought you were Red Hot Chili Peppers doing it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Had me fucking fleeing it, like, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
fleeing. We're creating new verbs on the go.
yeah, yeah. So something you said there just reminded me of that, and I was like, "Oh."
He's like, I hope you can play acoustic, and then you get to go back to bed.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Sorry, it's on the in the context of reviewing any of my band stuff online and him.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Also, R.I.P. Eamon Doran's great place.
Ah, so sad when that like turned into
When was
whatever it
that? Like
turned to be.
2010, was it that left?
Yeah, around
Uh,
then actually.
what is that now? Because I still see the arch obviously, and I just don't know what's in there. Is it just like a restaurant or something now, or
I don't know. They
uh,
locked a chip onto the side of it, and I don't know
yeah.
what happened to the main. They turned it into like just a regular like club. I remember that sort of went down the drain
Oh
fairly
yeah, that's
fast
right.
after.
I think the signage of that is still around, whether the club or not, it's still there. But the definitely, I think
It was
it
called
wasn't the Mez
Madonna's
on
or
your
something
side.
like that. Or
Sorry.
was it called Madonna's or something like that?
Yes, it was something like that. Yeah, it has some kind of name. I'll when I do the article, I'll just put in brackets here. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but I've definitely
Complete
seen the signage
departure,
for it.
like, you know.
Yeah. So yeah, but RIP, and that used to be the interesting bit. That was that used to be the rock garden where Radiohead apparently first played. That's their big claim to fame there, remember?
Oh, really?
And but they had like so many. If you look up like the rock garden in Dublin, they'd always have like really interesting bands, like particularly from the UK for some reason, but also from touring from Europe and from the States. Very interesting venue that I just think people don't really talk about anymore, you know?
Yeah, sure. I saw Curb Dog there, and one of my friends also saw Fun Loving Criminals.
Oh,
Indoor.
well.
So I was like, Jesus, and it was like at the height of their like
Yeah,
fame as well and stuff. And I was there going, fucking hell, to turn around and play Eamon Dorrance like is
yeah,
yeah, it was just one of those like it had a little bit of magic to it, like and it was really hard at the time when that like closed down because I think all like younger bands and we were on the younger side at the time. We're sort of going like, fuck, what are we gonna do now?
yeah.
And I think shortly after it, like I think like Sweeney's then followed suit and like the city is I don't know it's losing all its rock clubs really. Like,
Yeah, Fiverr's still stuck around, surprisingly. I'm amazed
Fibber's
that like
still
really
there,
stuck
yeah.
around. Then also, I mean, you got the opening of places like I guess Workman's Grand Social and Soundhouse, which are kind of where a lot of like the bands now are kind of playing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, yeah, also there was some Mez in Temple Bar that kind of just closed
Oh,
unceremoniously during the
yes,
thing.
yeah,
The
yeah.
Mez downstairs, I never really liked the upstairs venue, but the Mez downstairs was great. It was a
It's
great
cool,
like
wasn't it?
venue. It was so good. I loved that little venue, but like again, that closed around then. Yeah, the Tivoli was another one. I remember just like that closed down
Usually,
recently, which
yeah,
is
yeah.
great. Also, did you see? I saw recently what was interesting was I remember the Ambassador closed for a while. I remember they used to do gigs there, and then they
Yeah.
stopped doing gigs. Like I think it was at the end of the 2000s, and then throughout the 2010s, they would sometimes do exhibitions there, but they stopped doing gigs. And now, for whatever reason, they're like, "Oh yeah, we're doing gigs again," and everyone's like, "We've kind of moved on."
Are they?
They're starting to do shows again. I know Evan Dando's playing there like in 2 weeks or something. They're doing a lot of stand-up comedy as well now, but they're doing a few gigs as well.
I saw
Um,
like Avenged Sevenfold there in like 2006 or seven
uh,
or something like that. I
yeah,
remember like just one of those sort of venues.
yeah.
Um,
No,
yeah.
I like that one a lot. But again, it's like people are kind of like, well, we've moved on to like the academy and through the Olympia and stuff like that. I wonder what the clientele for the ambassador kind of will be because it's sort of in the mid, it's in between those kind of venues in terms of size wise. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Like this, the academy sort of like plugged the gap like that
yeah,
opened up after a few of those venues closed, and it sort of took off a little bit. So
Yeah.
yeah, I wonder where the ambassador actually lands now. That is
Yeah, I've
interesting.
no idea. Yeah.
Might be perfect to send in and send an email to. You
We
know?
try and get residency there. Be like, hey, if no one else is using
Residency. Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Every week, just go see Empathy at the Ambassador. Every Tuesday night.
Yeah, yeah. Jeez.
It just no, it'd just be some like random day. What were actually some of your favorite venues? Now we're just talking about the play in the city, and what are kind of some of your venues now that you like to play?
My favorite. Well, Eamon Dorans actually was one of my favorite venues growing up to play.
Hmm.
As we sort of started getting on and actually came around and everything, Sweeney's such a fun venue. Um I'll always Sweeney's was some of like the craziest sort of nights and everything. We've played Whelan's fantastic. The Button Factory was a fantastic stage to play. It's just unfortunately we played it during COVID and stuff, so with restrictions in place and stuff. But
Yeah, I think
yeah,
the Bone Factor is really slept on. I think it's because it used to be Temp Bar, I guess, Music Center. But again, I think like a lot of gigs that kind of get booked at the Academy, it's like I'd rather see them over at the Bone
yeah,
Factory or something like that.
yeah. No,
I think it's very
it's a really
different.
cool venue and the sound is so huge in
Yeah,
the place. I'd actually like nearly sometimes say like the sound like sonically, it's just the room itself is like can
yeah.
sometimes make bands just sound fantastic and
And the lighting tech is incredible there. It just looks
oh,
really
it's
good. The
great.
shows look really good. Like they make every show seem like a really big production. It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. No, the Button Factory is a great venue. We've played both stages in the academy as well. We're a bit younger than playing academy and stuff, but fun venue to play. But I know I like a little bit of the intimate nature. I'll always just, as I said, I harken back to Sweeney. Sweeney's just such a fun venue. I like places that also sort of know what they are a little bit. I think
Mm.
Sweeney's started to get a little bit of that cult edge to it that like sort of Eamon Doran's had and Fibers has it in fairness. That's why Fibers has survived this long, is because it's like it just knows exactly what it is. Everybody loves it for it. And I love Fibers for that as well. Like, I love like a place that just knows what it is and the vibe is always just fantastic. There's always great buzz around the place. So I just like venues like that. We've
Yeah.
played all over the country and stuff, and I'm sure there's lots of little ones here and there that I'm forgetting about in times, but those like sort of smaller venues that are a bit more intimate, I shouldn't say smaller, but more intimate venues
Yeah.
are the ones that I'm sort of like, yeah, yeah, I really like them.
Yeah, I enjoy the ones where it kind of feels like you're sort of hanging out in a place like you've mentioned, like Fibbers or Whelan's or what's called Dolan Sound Limerick, where it's like you have the bar adjacent, and it kind of feels like you're just hanging out, and then there's a gig on and stuff like that. Those are kind of I think the my personal favorites rather than because like a lot of venues just seems like you're there if there's an event on and that's it. You're not hanging out
Yeah, yeah,
otherwise. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So.
yeah. No, no, totally agree. Totally agree.
I want to talk about the band then. I'll try and take up too much more of your time. But I want to talk about Empathy, obviously. You started in 2017, if I'm correct. But it wasn't for about 7 years that you started actually releasing music with it. What were you kind of doing in between the time of forming the band? So you formed it with Adam, the drummer, if I'm correct, and then kind of accrued your bassist and second guitarist as it went along. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. So Adam and myself would have like played in like different projects and everything, from young. And then yeah, 2017 is when we had Dan and Sam come on to the scene. Now I say come on to the scene, we've known them since we were young. Adam grew up on the same street with Sam. I went to school with them. Dan hung around the same music heads as myself, and it just all sort of clicked into place. And I know it's one of those things that like we just got into a room. We knew exactly what we wanted to do. Um, but unfortunately, like just as we started, like, getting ourselves like into gear and stuff, COVID dropped. And we always said to ourselves that like if we're going to like release and start throwing ourselves into all this, we don't want to do it during COVID. Simply because as I said, live performance is like, your bread and butter a little bit.
Mhm.
And we weren't going to be able to like actually play and meet the people who would possibly listen to our music, and we get to play it for and stuff. And I know that never really stuck with me quite right, that we'd be releasing music sort of as this like nearly faceless thing. Basically,
Mhm.
I want to get out there and like play our music, then be able to like have people say, hey, I like that, where can I go? And it's like, okay, now I'll send you this way to
Mhm.
our music. So we spent like the first like sort of 3 years gigging around, getting used to all the venues, testing out what material works, what doesn't. And as I said, going back to that term, leaving a lot on the cutting room floor. We have so many songs that we'd play for months on end, and we judge it by how we are reacting on stage to it ourselves. And the minute we don't start feeling it, and people in the crowd stop reacting to it and stuff, we sort of you have to put your ego aside and go like, this isn't good enough, like, and
Mhm.
you have to hold yourself to a certain standard. So all that like sort of coming into play, and then leading into like all the lockdowns and everything. I know it's probably ourselves. We Our pride held ourselves back a little bit from trying to like release on this purely just online basis. We were sort of holding back and waiting and constantly now working and practicing, and like we must have about 2 albums worth of music like sort of ready to record,
Yeah.
um as well as releases coming down the line and stuff. But it's all been built up for about 3 years, because we just decided we want to do it a certain way,
Yeah.
and like I'd always like harken back, actually, even yourself, like going, oh God, remember Eamon Dorrance? Well, that's exactly what I think of
Yeah.
when I think about doing things certain ways. I think back to how I felt like uh, playing gigs like that, and trying to bring yourself back to this like real natural state of like being able to release something, gig it, and just be in the moment with it. You wouldn't have been able to do that during COVID and lockdowns and stuff. It would have felt like an extension of our office jobs we all already have and stuff,
Yeah.
So don't want music to turn into that for us.
Yeah, I remember post-COVID gigs being like, all had to be seated, all very limited, all very spaced out, and you weren't allowed to talk to anyone. Those were
Yeah,
the
yeah.
the early days. It was like really crazy. It was like I forget what show I went to. Like I forget when my first gig was, like after the COVID lockdowns, but it was at Workman's Club, the club, and it was like all seated and like all sparsely spread out, and you're just kind of like sitting there just watching the artists like that.
And the stage in Workman's is so cool, but you can't imagine how that would just kill the atmosphere, like.
Yeah, yeah,
So that's exactly what we just didn't want. I was having nightmares of having to try and like release like these songs that we're like sort of proud of to get out there and stuff, and just having to like play to all these like different tables of people tapping their hands and stuff. I mean,
yeah.
once you're doing a bit more than that, so
I guess one benefit is if you're an act who doesn't have much pull, you can be like, "Hey, restricted capacity, restricted capacity."
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Just blame the
exactly.
government.
Yeah. I know you're wanting, but we're not letting you. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Listen, this could easily have been sold out, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly.
When it came to actually the sound of the band, because I mean, it's very, I think it's very evocative of the kind of 90s alternative, as you were kind of mentioned, with acts like Alice in Chains and with Smashing Pumpkins. I was also getting some instances of Filter, as well as like Nine Inch Nails and even PJ Harvey personally when I was listening to it.
Mm.
I was getting kind of flavors of that.
Like,
Was the musical direction something that you sat down beforehand and said, okay, this is what we're kind of going to aim for, or was that just organically what came out when you guys started playing together?
I'd say it's organic to an extent. What I mean by that is, so looking at how like music is now, and you're either like a have to play a certain type of music and then you're a global superstar. If you want to make, interesting music, but a culty with a cult edge to it and stuff like that. And I'm very much of, sort of the opinion, and this might be harkening back to my own like upbringing, listening to sort of more accessible like rock music and stuff when I was younger, and then going into more alternative like sort of roots. And like even you mentioned Nine Inch Nails, such a massive Nine Inch Nails fan, so it's like music to my ears to hear that, like
Mhm.
and but it's a little bit of, we want to create music that is accessible to the extent that somebody who appreciates good music can sort of go, "Oh, that sounds good. I wouldn't I wouldn't usually listen to that, but it sounds good." Um, but we don't want to be cookie cutter.
Mhm.
So it's also, and I don't think there is actually anything bad about having to actually like think about how you're going to present and like, format your songs, even, when it comes to the, I suppose, the post writing process. Because usually the way a song will come together is, the song gets written on an acoustic guitar, um, and then it's brought to the band, and then it's turned into something that, it doesn't sound too much like how it started out. But because there's the base there of a song, of an idea, you bring it down this certain pathway, and next thing you start seeing off ramps
Yeah.
all the way down, and you just have to pick the right off ramps. And that's how I describe it, which, trying to be like very honest about what we're trying to do. We're trying to create. We're trying to be expansive, and play music we like. But we're also not trying to, we don't want to like do this like nearly exclusionary sort of thing of, oh, we're going to do like, 15-minute instrumentals and stuff.
Yeah.
That's not going to be accessible to like, somebody who, well, from my own vein, although I love Nine Inch Nails and stuff like that, but I also know that there's a lot of people who like some Nine Inch Nails, you know. So it's a little bit like that, if you can sort of understand what I'm saying there.
Totally.
And that it's not that we're trying to be like, I hate the idea of like fucking, writing to be noticed and stuff like that, because we're definitely not doing that. But we're trying to just write music um that is experimental, is expansive, but also isn't too far out there where we're basically telling everybody, "Oh, well, you just don't fucking get us," like,
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, come on, it's music. It's nearly always based on a topic in your own life, or something that happens to you, or you pick a subject, and then the music, you're going to try your best to make it sound good.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we want to make music that sounds good and makes people feel something,
Right.
whether that is you want to get introspective on our lyrics and what they could mean, any stories or anything behind them, or if it's just simply there's a certain section of one of our songs which grabs you, or like, maybe you were lucky enough to like, maybe cause a few hairs to stand up every now and again and stuff. That's all I want. That's all I want. I don't we don't have this massive like, agenda or anything like that. We just want to make music that like, makes people feel something.
And if it gets popular, that wouldn't be too
And if
bad
it gets
either.
popular, if somebody comes along and lands a lot of money and
If
wants to
someone from
just sell
Capitol
it,
Records comes
I'm
along,
here
like
for it. If
like that
somebody
episode.
wants us to start doing it the opposite way and they pay us a huge check,
It's like
there
that.
we go. Just completely backtracked on that entire.
Yeah, it's like we're willing to sanitize everything to make it palatable. Don't worry. We'll just
I will
off every
completely
corner.
stamp all over my principles there. This is an expensive country.
Yeah, that's true. That'd be funny if you got like a major like record deal with like I don't know, like one of the majors, and it's just like, yeah, now I can afford rent to Dublin for 4 months off my advance,
I can't wait for that residency you were talking about.
Yeah. You're just like, can we sleep here, by the way? Is that
Yeah,
okay?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm sorry, I might have misinterpreted what residency meant. Sorry. Um,
Uh,
Before we just get on to your songs, one thing I wanted to ask too, because I was just a little uncertain. So, when did you guys start playing like gigs? Like, roughly when would you have started? Well, with Empathy, I mean.
empathy. Probably like because we say officially established 2017.
Hmm.
So like we probably skipped around like under the empathy moniker, playing around with it a little bit previous years. I would say that our like official, like, we started like solidly marketing ourselves. This is like empathy as we are, and under the music we make and stuff, we probably straight away 2017.
Okay.
So fairly like, the minute we started producing a couple of songs, we're going, oh, that sounds good. Can we fill a slot on a bill and stuff? We were just taking a gig, taking it on the road and seeing how it goes. So yeah.
What have been some of the kind of biggest gigs I guess you would have played at this point in career? 'Cause like we said, I mean, it's funny because it's been going for 7 years now, but like it's still at the moment it still feels like I guess kind of a brand new project in a lot of ways, in the sense that it's getting stuff out there now. But from your perspective, I mean, was that also kind of challenging them playing shows for so long without having material out there? Because I know a lot of for example, there's a lot of venues, a lot of bookers won't book people unless they can actually hear the music beforehand. Was that a
Oh yeah,
challenge
yeah.
or?
Now we have music released. It's the releasing schedule. We would have had a lot of music built up, recorded and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's one of those cases of just weren't we felt certain songs weren't ready to be put forward yet and everything. And so when it came to actually like putting music up to bookers and stuff, that it was fine. We just sent
Okay.
them an email with the music and stuff.
Don't
Um
share it.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like, bold writing on
You
the
just
email.
you just find them putting it all on DistroKid and taking all your money from
Yeah,
you. Like,
yeah,
what the
yeah.
fuck?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Oh,
No,
for
I have to
this
say,
then.
I get like a lot of advances and stuff like that, and I would obviously never actually do this, but it's just kind of funny where I'm kind of tempted just to put this shit up on to
Yeah,
just
oh
get money
yeah,
from
yeah,
people.
yeah.
I would
No,
never
no, I
actually do
know.
that, to be clear. It's just
That-
one of them weird intrusive thoughts you get sometimes. You're like, that would be a funny thing to do.
Oh, you got a little bit of that Paddy Fogarty in you.
Yeah, yeah,
I love that you know that. He's like a
it's like here's how I made all my money. It's like just like writing, just publishing books about it, just like the most unethical shit you could ever think of.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Ghost at the feast, fucking Paddy Fogarty. Um, no, there was definitely like drawbacks not having stuff out there. It's one of probably a slight regret is not getting it out there earlier. But like as I said, by the time we were, sort of deciding that like, oh, we're ready to do this, next thing a lockdown came around. We were doing fine, getting around gigging, and as I said, doing the whole like, sending some songs over through email, and then basically you're going on the back of your reputation for basically showing up, um, making connections with everyone and stuff. But I suppose, like, that is the whole thing where that, like, we've been doing this for a good while, but like it's sort of yeah, it's still like fresh to everyone else
Yeah,
as well, like,
that's fair.
so which is fair enough, because like though I've always said this even in the run up to these like sort of songs coming out and everything. I've been like, this is brand new to everybody else, so therefore it is brand new. That's just it. Until it's actually out in the world or somebody else hears it, it doesn't exist.
Yeah,
So like, the old
yeah.
in the woods, like, yeah.
If a band makes music and no one's around to hear it, does it really exist?
Exactly. There's a little bit like that. So now we're here, so.
Perfect. The first song you released was back in August. It was Jeffrey, which, if I'm correct, was about serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah.
He's yeah, he was kind of popular a few years ago, which is weird to
Fucking
think
missed
that.
that boat, I'm telling you, man. We saw that Netflix documentary come out. We're looking at each other going like,
You could have been
God
on the
damn it.
soundtrack.
Yeah, yeah. I know. Maybe we would have like, sort of sped up the process a little bit and consider releasing during COVID if we knew about that in
Yeah.
advance. But
It was
yeah.
interesting too because he was kind of like a fixture of music in the 90s. One I always think of is I forget which song it is, but it's a song by Therapy that goes, "I know how Jeffrey Dahmer feels lonely." Trigger inside it is. I was playing the song in my head there automatically. But I forget. Like I remember seeing his like kind of image being used because actually it was weird. Like an image of a young Jeffrey Dahmer and the image of a young Kurt Cobain are actually very similar. If you've
They're
ever seen the
very
two.
similar, aren't they?
It's insane, yeah. They really like look like they could be the same. If you got like a t-shirt, this being an evil thing to do, if you got a t-shirt with young Jeffrey Dahmer and just put like a Nirvana logo, people would buy it like without thinking.
Oh God, need to delete this video afterwards so I can steal that idea. That's a great idea.
I'll edit this out. So I'm like, okay, but you will get a copyright suit just for using Nirvana's likeness.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah. I
think
suppose just that there.
I think Courtney Love owns. I could be wrong with this. Owns the rights to the Nirvana estate. So that'd be kind of cool to get like a cease and desist sign from her. That'd be
Yeah,
kind of like an
yeah,
achievement.
yeah.
Then you can put that in your EPK. Just be like, oh yeah, Courtney loves her, the band.
We were sort of thinking that as well about the Dahmer stuff as well, when we were figuring out all of the copyright issues around using like an image and stuff. And there was the whole like if you edit it and stuff and put your own spin and interpretation of an image and everything. But we are going like, what if like Dahmer's like fucking dad or someone like sues us and they're like, it's not a bad thing being marketed as people who are being sued by that of like one of the world's worst fucking people.
It would only be bad if you're being sued for plagiarism.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Might have an issue. Be a problem there.
Well, actually, I think that like because Charles Manson was alive for a long time, and people would cover his songs. Like most famously, Guns N' Roses would cover Charles Manson songs. I always wondered, did they have to give like royalties to him?
Yeah, yeah.
Did you ever hear that thing about John Hinckley Jr., who was the guy who tried to assassinate Ronald Reagan? He was unsuccessful, but
Yeah.
he was in prison for years. He recently got out a couple of years back, and he's on like Twitter and stuff. But he was a songwriter too, and Devo actually played one of his songs. It was I forget the name of it. Let me I Desire, it's called. Sorry, again, I just have to
Uh-huh.
mentally hear. So it was like they had a song on their album after Reagan had been assassinated. That was because they did it for like I guess I don't know controversy or whatever.
Alrighty,
And
yeah.
and so yeah, they had a song written by John Hinckley Jr. on their album that came out I think like 2 or 3 years after his assassination attempt.
I sort of love those little like sort of tidbits, like
Yeah, yeah.
those right. It's great, like.
But I think they later went, yeah, we kind of regret that.
Yeah, well.
I want to ask about the recording song because, like we mentioned, it was literally just at the end of August that Jeffrey came out, 26th, if I'm correct. And
Mm.
then your new single that's coming out this Friday, as we're speaking, be out obviously by the time this comes out. Dying Breed. I guess about a week and sorry, about a month and a week after. And no, I'm not good at maths. About a month and a week, we'll say,
Yeah, yeah.
after your first single. Do you have your singles kind of, or your songs rather, recorded in bulk that are ready to go throughout, or are you kind of recording them one at a time?
No, we record in bulk.
Yeah.
So we'd record in bulk and then decide what to do afterwards. But nearly what gets released will be the ones that like are sort of recorded in amongst each other, and then we'll have like one or two stragglers, but we usually won't even lump them in a little bit because sort of find that like you leave a few months between recording certain songs and try and slam them together.
Mhm.
They just sound different, like so, because you're in a different headspace, you're playing differently, even, depending on the music you're listening to, it influences a little bit how you play your own instrument, and you pick stuff up as you go along, even if you don't mean to.
Mhm.
So, no, we try and like record all in bulk, and release all at once. And we have a lot more sort of built up in bulk, but like that's for another day.
Okay.
Um, but uh, but yeah, that's sort of how we go. If we're going to go into studio, we sort of make sure we have a lot to do.
Yeah.
You know.
How do you kind of plan which songs to kind of go with? Because using Jeffrey as kind of an introduction to your band, now Dying Breed to kind of follow up from that. I mean, it's interesting because it does seem sonically different, but at the same time not worlds apart. It's a very interesting thing. Like, it seems like a song like Jeffrey would be, I guess, a more logical thing to follow up with, and then maybe a song like A Dying Breed would come after, or not logical, but conventional, let's say. Um,
Mhm.
I'm not trying to be a dick.
No, 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 no,
The
no.
smart thing to do, no, I'm joking. But it seems like that would be the kind of conventional way of doing things. Um, what how did you kind of decide the pattern of release for your songs?
um, how would we have gone about it? I suppose what we would have assessed is like what was the most sort of what made an impression. I'd say sonically, while Jeffrey is like definitely a lot more sort of in your face and everything, I think it's sonically, it it captures something. What we did in studio with that song compared to A Dying Breed is A Dying Breed is a song that I think is like your classic sort of, has a little bit of pop wrapped into it. You're more standardized and everything, but it's still like very much a fucking, uh, hard alternative rock music. Jeffrey just did something that we're like, if we're going to like sort of make our first like foray out into the world, and this is the first thing we're gonna show off and stuff, we literally want something that's gonna like fucking whack you in the face with a shovel. I think even after that first like riff run through, Jeffrey sort of does that. Jeffrey
Yeah,
sort of I've seen people like who have listened to put their earphones in and literally after the first like 7 or 8 seconds sort of go
yeah,
like and I'm like but then like you see them sort of nodding their heads.
yeah,
It's again it's drawing that line between like you don't want it to be egregious or like difficult to listen to, but you want it to
yeah,
be impactful. So that's why we would have picked Jeffrey. We'd see Jeffrey as the first sort of like basically wake up call, I suppose. That's the way I describe it. That's really why we decided to put Jeffrey first. It's not particularly that like we prefer either song over each other. We just thought like um logically or illogically, we were literally just like it's like throwing a glass of water in a sleeping person's face. Like, that's what Jeffrey like is. It's like we're
yeah.
here, wake up, you know. And then A Dying Breed is a little bit more like, are you awake now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's the tell.
Yeah, yeah. So that's how how I would have described like the thought process.
Yeah.
That's my thought process anyway. Maybe the other lads are going, "What the fuck are you talking about, Dean?" But
No, no, not at all. Actually, I think it's a really good kind of it shows the versatility of the band while at the same time not being totally alien. That's how I feel about it. It's I don't know. It reminds me of this is a weird point of comparison, perhaps, but it reminds me of like when Metallica did Ride Lightning and they had that song Fight Fire Fire and just starts off with that kind of acoustic
yeah,
kind of bit and then goes into what you'd expect from Metallica. I felt a similar thing with this where it's kind of like initially it might be like, oh, what's this? Like it seems like totally different. And oh no, like it actually is consistent with what came before. I don't know if that's a good point of comparison.
no, that's probably actually a good point of comparison. Like there, because like there is that sort of thing. Like Jeffrey is like just fucking all go all the way, and then by the time you pop on a dying breed, it like sort of opens up a lot more sort of quiet, and there's a little bit more of groove to it and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And then it opens itself back up. It nearly like just it becomes so expansive compared to how the song opens up. Like it really doesn't end where it started.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that's a good comparison. Yeah, I like that.
I guess one final thing I'll ask is, kind of we're talking about how the music, like kind of some of the reference points for the style of music that you guys are doing, and we're kind of referencing a lot of bands who were popular in the 90s in particular. But just in general, you were also mentioning like, the stuff that you're listening to now also kind of influence you and expand your reach. I was wondering how much of empathy is kind of based on what you grew up listening to, what kind of shaped the musician you are today versus modernity and what still continues to pique your interest.
Hmm. I'd say that look, our music is like quite like unapologetically influenced like sonically by like alternative music from the 90s and stuff. But I mean the type of music I'm listening to these days, like I listen to a lot of country music
Yeah.
as well, like which is very like you're not going to hear that in the influence behind the songs and stuff. But and a lot of like sort of more like electro goth, like the Soft Moon and John Mouse and everything. And they're some of my favorites at the moment. Viagra Boys, fantastic. But that's more like it might influence like how I'm going, and I'm going to initially write a song.
Mhm.
But then because of the collaborative way we sort of get together and like nearly pick it back apart, it becomes something different. So that's why nearly you can have like songs like Jeffrey and A Dying Breed that you're saying yourself, you're like, God, they're like so different, but there's also a link right between them. It's that link is, I suppose, the relationship between we all know, like we have this like sort of affinity for making this types of music, but then depending on the time we're writing the songs and stuff, you'll have a little bit of like your influence in your songwriting, maybe taking this in individual. I'm writing a song or taking it off this way, and it's the rest that drags you back into line. But it actually, the end product ends up being like, quite unique. And it's look, I think that's actually the case with every single musician, every single band that creates music over the course of time. I think it's not, I think it's knowing like, the sort of principles of your songwriting growing up and what you initially wanted to do, what you have to say to the world and everything. But then maybe not intentionally, but whatever you're listening to, whoever you're sort of paying attention to and stuff, it rubs off on you. That's what we all want to do as musicians, is just sort of rub off on each other and influence each other.
I
Okay,
think that's what I
cut
think
that.
that's what we want to do.
Yeah, yeah, you cut that. Well, maybe
Consensually,
not like that.
consensually.
Really want to rub off on your principal. But we want to influence each other and stuff.
Sure.
And
Sorry, I'm just being a pervert.
yeah, yeah. No, it reminds me of that whole school rock thing.
Oh yeah, I touched them, and I think they touched
Your
me
kids
too.
touched me, and I'm pretty sure I've touched them all too.
Oh, this website is now on some government list for when I publish that.
But so that's sort of what it's all about. Like
Touching people.
that, touching people. It's all about being completely as inappropriate with people as you can get away with.
It just
Yeah,
grabs you. Yeah.
it just grabs you. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
wherever we want.
Okay. I think I'll just leave it there. No, I will say thanks again for doing this. And one final thing I'll ask. I always say this, like I was like, yeah, one more thing, and then I'm
Oh
like
yeah,
fucking
yeah.
I'm like Columbo, one more thing. But when now that your songs are out, now that you have releases out there, have you found the reception to them all? And is it also good now for the sake of audiences to be able to go, hey, you can actually go and listen to this?
Oh, it's fantastic. It's such a yeah, yeah. It's fantastic to actually just be able to go, hey, take out your phone. We can show you, we can show you where to go, or like tell you
Yeah.
like how to look us up and stuff. And that was always one of the big things, like holding us back. Was that whole process of not being able to send people to a specific place. So no, that's such a huge help. Sorry, what was the first part of that question again?
Yeah, it was also just kind of like about the reception to it all.
Reception to it. The reception we're really happy with. Now the my dad, I think it's as we like progress down this road, he's always a bit like, wow, you seem to be getting louder and like more like sort of crazy and stuff like that. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes, and stuff. But we've been getting a really good feedback every time we actually go into studio and stuff to record. If we send a reference over, just as like this is what we've been doing before and stuff, we get a lot of really great feedback from the producers and the engineers even and stuff. And I'm just looking forward to being able to like sort of push them as hard as we have with having that reference, playing them live and stuff. It's always like the funnest thing to be able to show that music off. And so you get the first initial burst of like, if people like your music, you get to see it like on their face, like they're in front of you.
Mhm.
And then you get to send them
Yeah.
where they can keep on listening to it, like so yeah,
Yeah. Perfect.
we're really happy.
Thanks very much for your time, and I've really enjoyed talking with you. Is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap up, or
No, no, no. You just
can't think of that? Can't think of that. All right.
I can't think of anything without getting myself in further trouble.
You're gonna like jolt awake tonight, and go, oh shit, I should have said that.
Fucking Weinstein myself if I keep coming up with these metaphors.
Yeah, that's how it works. I'm just picturing your dad like waking you up again, just going, come here and just bring you to the computer and like bringing up this interview.
Are you
What do
being
you mean you're gonna
indicted on sexual abuse?
what do you mean you're gonna Weinstein yourself? What does that mean?
No, Dad, if you just tilt the screen back, it says I'm not Weinstein.
Okay.
Love to the Columbo reference, by the way.
Oh yeah, no, I just
Really showing
I
our
was little.
age here.
Yeah, well, sometimes I feel like Columbo, not in like not in terms of smarts, but just in terms of dishevelment. Sometimes you're just going around and you just feel like a little unkempt, and you just kind of feel a bit like Columbo.
There's one more thing. Yeah.
Yeah, you could pull off that aesthetic if you have the kind of charisma and the smarts and but that's a big ask because
That's a great look actually as we get older and keep playing
yeah.
in this band forever to transition into the style of Colombo. Like what a great like stage look.
I say it get kind of hot though in that big jacket. Imagine like playing under the bright lights and just that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh.
I've worn a blazer on stage and I've never again. Our guitarist
Yeah.
still like every now and again will pull out a black blazer and they're going like fucking mad, man. It's
Yeah, yeah.
sweating sweating bullets in the thinnest t-shirt ever, like just trying to
Dude,
oh
it's mad how many places like many like the venues in the city don't have AC. Like a lot of them have air
yeah.
conditioning, but Workman's does, and I think Whelan's does, but I don't know how many do because I've been to so many gigs where just like sweating bullets, man. Just like even the crowd, I'm like, oh my God, this is
It's
unsustainable.
always it's so funny playing the stage in Chennai because they have
Yes, the
those
Shanae is
lights
mad.
directly in your face.
Yeah,
It's you're only like halfway through your first song and you start feeling trickles coming down onto
yeah.
your eyebrows. You're just there going, oh man.
Shanae is always a hot
40
box, man.
minutes to
Imagine
go.
like working there like as a bartender or a sound engineer, you just be like just like always just like I don't know, like going to the sun for work.
Yeah,
Going
yeah.
directly to the sun. But you know what's funny too is I don't know if you've been to many gigs at Vicar Street, but they actually have these on their ceiling, they have these like big industrial size fans
Yeah.
and they look massive, but a lot of the time they're never even on. Like, what's the point of having them like roasting? I'm like, put them on, you know? Well, it is nice when they do put them on because it does kind of cool you down. But it's funny because they're just like I've never seen them either. It's just like really big, like kind of I don't know, big industrial fans. Crazy.
I don't see the ambassador investing in that for the reopening the gigs.
You know, it's interesting. I used to work at the Olympia, and they I forget what the reason is, but they can't install AC because of how old the building is. I forget the details
Oh
exactly. So
right, yeah.
they have old ceiling fans, but they barely work. But they always have them on, and what they have to do literally is just open up. If it gets too hot, open all the doors and just hope the air travels.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah.
that's
Well,
literally all they can really do. It's like,
you got people at the door trying to fan
yeah.
in, like,
But dude,
oh,
like the
shit.
hotness of venues, man, has actually kind of ruined some gigs for me just because you're at this gig and you can't breathe and you're just like sweating. You're kind of like, I think I'm gonna pass out. I kind of don't want this to be over. I
I
waited
remember
6 months for this.
I remember seeing actually a venue where you wouldn't think like, it'd be cramped enough to like have that happen. Um, the RDS. I remember
Oh,
seeing like
really?
indoor the RDS. I remember seeing Pumpkins in like late '07 or early '08.
Right.
And
Yeah, because the point was being renovated, so all the gigs that we went to the point went to the RDS Simmons Court. Yeah, I remember that.
exactly.
Lincoln
But I
Park played
remember
there as well, I think, at that
they're
time.
they're trying to pass like water back and stuff like people were
Yeah,
fucking collapsing all around us like
yeah,
just the just a sweat box like the whole
yeah.
thing was like it was crazy. um yeah, I said pumpkins were fucking there like thinking like, oh Jesus Christ, we've seen this before in Dublin, like
Oh, yeah, yeah.
so
That girl in '96, yeah.
yeah, terrible
Yeah.
stuff. But
Brenda, I forget her name.
that's just one of those things though, like it's venues like that are not equipped for
Mm.
uh, for that sort of stuff. I think that should nearly be like a thing, like circulation of air is like
Yeah, I agree. Because even like modern venue, because we were talking about the Academy earlier, even the Academy feels like sweatbox. I've been to so many gigs there, whereas I've seen the Descendants there, I've seen Deck Grips there, and I've seen the Chats there, and each one is just like drenched. You just come out absolutely drenched. Just like
yeah,
I need water. Like literally, what the best they do is just like they pour a glass of water and just hold them out. It's like I don't know, I never just grab them water as quick as they can,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I guess that's the best you can do is just kind of keep people hydrated.
I
But
suppose so. Suppose
you
so.
feel like a venue that was that kind of modern and recent would have,
That's it.
uh,
It's like
yeah,
purpose built. You'd think they're like sort of.
yeah. Well, I know at least one venue. I won't name its name, but one venue that purposely doesn't put on the AC to get people to buy drinks. I'm like, that should be illegal. Like that should be. They
What
have the
what
ability.
off the record? What venue is that? All right. Okay.
Yeah, because they want people to buy drinks. So, They,
that
yeah,
I can see that actually. I've had some gigs there where it's been like unmerciful, like he like um and they're actually with like was crazy as well. People getting carried out and stuff like that.
it's insane. Yeah, like people's health should come before fucking commerce. I don't know. Sorry to get political.
Get that unconscious girl a pint. She
Yeah,
needs an
yeah.
overpriced pint.
Wait. Checking what she has on her first. All right.
Yeah. Get
Just
her
taking
out
out
of here.
just taking out her wallet. Just like no.
Exits that way. Get a
It's like no,
bill.
I have the money, but it's like oh, but this is a cashless venue. Sorry.
You get a bill in the post for security carrying you out, like transport.
The funny thing is, I probably would have. It's like premium carrying, like and they justify it too. They'd be like, well, on the ticket it said, we told them on the ticket that if they passed out, that
The,
was their responsibility.
the
They,
Ticketmaster terms and conditions. Yeah.
dude, they probably will start doing that and tickets. I could honestly see it where it's just like a ticket that just says, the promoters and venue are not responsible for your health and safety when you enter the premises. You kind of relinquish any ability to sue us. Like I could totally see something like that.
No, you know what? I wouldn't put it past them. I wouldn't
No,
put it past
did you
them.
see that thing? Whereas the girl had allergic reaction in Disneyland. Did you see this? And this girl died from allergic reaction to some food in Disneyland, and her boyfriend just wanted money to cost for the funeral costs, and Disney said no because get this, when he signed up to Disney Plus years before, um, they were part of the contract was that he could not sue the Walt Disney Company for damages or something like that. I forget the exact wording, but it's insane. Now eventually they paid up because of the negative press, but I was like, that is fucking sinister.
That's crazy.
Yeah, dude, look that up. Disneyland allergic reaction lawsuit or something like that. It's insane. It only happened quite recently too. It was kind of all over the internet.
Do you remember those like rumors, or I don't know if it's like a conspiracy or if this is an actual like sort of thing, but the whole like nobody dies at Disney policy,
Yeah, I've heard
where
about that. Yeah, they always kind of get you off the premises if you're having a
before
heart attack or
they
something.
pronounce
Yeah,
you
yeah.
dead, if you like, so nobody dies at Disney,
Yeah, because it's the happiest place on the
yeah,
earth. It's funny how
yeah.
everyone just like like thinks of Disney as like evil, but like people they still try to have that pretense of being like really friendly and stuff like that. I'm like, who are you fooling? Yeah.
Yeah. Like that was just something that was completely not shocking to me when I heard that whole
No. It's funny, you can really say anything about Disney, people kind of be like, yeah, it's probably true. Like that
yeah,
thing about Walt Disney's head freezing in cryogenic freezing.
yeah.
Yeah, shit like
The
that. You're like, all
original,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, you're like, yeah, probably. If anyone
Wonder when they're
hits
gonna
Disney.
thaw him out.
Yeah, yeah. They make it like a big day, like all the Disney adults would be there, like, yeah. They'd make it a big
And,
event. That'd be cool, yeah. And it's like 100 grand. Like people would pay super money for that, like 100 grand and shit.
that'd be crazy. Like fucking, that would be yeah. I wouldn't pay 100 grand, but like, yeah, I might go on a pre-sale for.
Someone I saw today was showing a price for a resale of a Sabrina Carpenter ticket because she's touring the US at the moment, and it
Right.
was like 200 grand. I'm not even joking. And
What?
the joke was, should I buy a house or buy a go see Sabrina Carpenter?
I see you made the wrong decision.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, dude.
fuck.
But that was my issue too. I was looking at like the government now are kind of stepping in after the Oasis thing. And but my thing was that like, well, on the one hand, I'm glad that they're trying to tackle it, but at the same time, I kind of doubt they understand the industry enough to really make effective regulation.
No,
That's
no.
my opinion. So it's just going to be like, I don't know. It's like I think you should regulate, but at the same time, I don't trust. I don't trust the current government to do it
No,
effectively.
absolutely not. Like, no. And it's nearly, I nearly feel like they're only like attempting to step in because maybe fucking their bloody daughter came to them saying, I couldn't get a fucking ticket.
Yeah, exactly. It's
You
it's like Oasis. As soon as like it's the gig that affects you, where it's like they've been doing this shit for years, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Fucking everybody trying to line up for fucking Coldplay
yeah,
5.
yeah.
Fuck me, man. What's happened to the world?
Yeah, it's funny. Like I don't know anyone who listens to Coldplay, but every time they come here, they sells out like mad.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I used to work in a garage around the corner from Croke Park. So
Hmm.
because we were a business, we used to get free tickets
Oh, cool.
to not any of the games, but any of the concerts. So like I've seen like a lot of people in Croke Park, and so I've seen Coldplay
Okay.
there, and I just remember like sort of sitting in in the crowd and sort of being like, this is the most like fucking brown bread mayonnaise fucking
Mm.
gig I've ever like fucking been to before. It's just like it really is like just sand sandwiches, just
Yeah.
bland as can be. I don't know how anybody, I can picture. I'm not going to say it, of course, but I can picture the exact person that fucking spends like fucking €300 on a fucking Coldplay ticket.
Yeah, it's
I
called the
walk
Fine
up.
Gael TD.
Yeah.
Just whatever you
It's the
think of when I
T-shirt.
say, whenever I say Fine Gael TD, whatever comes to your mind, that's the type of person that's into Coldplay.
Yeah.
Fine Gael counselor or anything.
Really see if Universal turns around to ourselves and stuff, we'll have a reworked Jeffrey
Yeah.
playing Five Nights at Croke Park. Biggest fan, fucking in the Kenny.
Don't worry, I'm cutting all this shit out anyway. But it'd be mad if like if like somehow MCD came to you and was like, "Would you like to open for Coldplay?" I'd be like, fuck yeah.
Of course, I love Coldplay.
Yeah. And then they go, you know,
Send
you
me your
finish
free tickets.
tribute band. They're playing the Grand Social. Fuck.
Yeah.
I always see that
No.
too, like where a lot of clubs will do like the after party, like oh this event's after party, like
Yeah.
AC/DC after party, Coldplay after party, whatever, Taylor Swift after party, and it's just like, but the way they phrase it, it's always like Taylor Swift at the Grand Social, but they'll have like after party like really
Yeah,
small, as
yeah,
if
yeah,
so
yeah.
as like because they're gonna do at least one person like what she's playing Workman's for like 12 quid, so I have to go.
All those people in Tree Arena are idiots.
Yeah. Anyway, man, thanks very much for your time, and I'll try and get this published for Friday.
Yeah, no worries, man. Really appreciate it. It was great talking to you. Actually,
Yeah, you too,
a
man.
nice chat, sure.
Sure,
No,
man. And if you want to do it again, let me know.
fantastic. I might take you up on that. Never mind.
Perfect. Take care of yourself,
Thanks,
man.
Aaron.
Bye.
Take it easy.
You too. Thank you for listening to that episode of Post-Burnout.com interviews. We're an independent venture run by yours truly, and as I said at the beginning, liking, rating, subscribing, and sharing really helps us out a lot. If you're feeling extra generous, we do have a PayPal donation link in the episode description, but don't feel obligated, of course. We've also begun releasing occasional exclusive episodes on Spotify, so subscribe there if you'd be interested in hearing those. Thanks again for listening, and see you next time.